Now, have you always wanted to be a health coach?
I haven't always wanted to be a health coach. I kind of realized it when I was in the middle of my second year at college, because I used to go to Cal State Fullerton. And so I went there for 2 years before realizing that they didn't have what I wanted. And so after doing a bit of research, I found the school I'm at now, which is integrative nutrition. And I left Fullerton and I started taking classes online for IIN. And so that's what I'm doing now.
Is this kind of like a second choice for you, or is there something you always wanted to do that you thought, oh, you know what, that's kind of like way out of reach?
Not really anything consistent. I mean, when I was younger, it was always like, this is when I was like 8 or 9. I was like, I'm going to be a zoologist, or I'm going to be like a doctor. And it was never really anything of substance. It was just kind of like, oh, that would be cool, you know? And as I got older, like when I was in high school, I wanted to be a dancer because I did dance. And now I realize that that's more of like a hobby and like a passion, but it's not really the right career choice for me, just because my first year at Fullerton, I was a dance major, and I kind of had a wake up call that like, this isn't the career for me. So I took a step back, and I just do dance like recreational now, which is enough for me. Yeah. And so I didn't start getting into health coaching until like my second year. And because I was doing kinesiology, but I didn't like how it was just focused on body movement. I thought there was a lot more to health than just the physical aspect. And so
yes, and
when I found IAN, it felt like a good match. So
now, did you yourself at that time go through like a period where you wanted to get healthy, or were you already healthy?
Yeah, so I was actually in the middle of like a really bad eating disorder at that time.
Okay.
So from about the ages of, I would say 15 up until like 18, I was kind of anorexic, more orthorexic, because I was in dance, and so I was after that specific body type.
Okay.
But it was like I was super restrictive of my eating. I was dancing 8 hours a day, and then I would do like a HIIT workout later, and then I was like once a week I would go on these like crazy runs that were like 12 miles and like just like crazy. And I was maybe at my lowest, I think I was 105 pounds, and I'm 5'3", so that's like really underweight for my height.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where because I was at Fullerton, and so I don't know if you've ever seen Cal State Fullerton, but it's a really wide campus. And so, and I was carrying like all my bags, and so I was still walking around a lot. And even when I wasn't in dance, like I could tell like physically, like I wasn't doing good, because like I would walk upstairs and I would like lose my breath.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, like my heart was having palpitations. I was,
did you get dizzy a lot?
I would get dizzy if I walked upstairs. Yeah. So there was just like a lot of like physical things, like my fingernails would turn blue, because like my blood wasn't circulating. And so there's, yeah, so it's a little scary. I'm like, I could have probably dropped dead or like had like a heart attack or something from palpitations. Yeah. But, luckily I kind of pulled myself out of that a little bit, and then when I found IAN, that kind of helped me stabilize myself more, because it taught me about the importance of like nutrients and like being kind to your body, and how your body is, this supercomputer it's trying to keep you alive. And so that helped me, and it just helped me balance like primary foods. So instead of like just regular food, which is what we call your secondary food, primary food is like your relationships, your job, your spirituality, your joy, things like that. And so it kind of helped me put into perspective other things that were going on that were causing my eating disorder, and it just kind of helped me look at the big picture. And so
So
Yeah.
did you stop on your own, or did you seek help, like be a counselor or a treatment center?
Well, I was already going to therapy because I was going to therapy since sophomore year of high school because I have issues with anxiety and depression, and
Okay.
so she she helped me through it. So she's a big help. So I was already going through that process a little bit.
Okay.
Um, but I think the thing with therapy is like you kind of have to be willing to do the hard work and realize that what you're doing isn't healthy. Um, and so I think it just took me a little bit longer to realize that than if I went to like a specific treatment center.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it was better for me.
Yeah. I give you credit for even like noticing that though. Like, was your family supportive?
So, I mean, looking back now, I realize that they were supportive. At the time, it just sounded like they were being worrisome.
Okay.
Because in my head, I was still chubby. I still had weight to lose, you know. But like in reality, like looking back on pictures, I was like skin and bone. So um, they they were always supportive of me going to therapy, me getting help and everything. So yeah, it was just at the time it seemed like they were just being annoying and worrisome.
Yeah. Did it take you a while to, the same way someone who's obese loses weight or any like change like that sometimes takes a while to change the mind and
Hmm.
did for a while after you like physically stopped, like with the eating disorder, did you still have like the body image though? Did you still see someone that you used to see in the mirror that wasn't there, body size?
I mean, the body image issues thing is still something that I deal with. So this is only like I'm only 20 right now.
I was going to say, you
So
sound real young. That's what I'm saying. For you, I'm really
yeah.
impressed that you're this self aware. I mean, congratulate yourself for that. You're doing good. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, no problem. But yeah, but that, yeah, the body image thing, I was just saying, because mine, it took a long time for even though the disorder itself, the physical aspect disorder was gone, the
Hmm.
what I saw in the mirror took a while it took a while to work on that.
Yeah, that's still something that I'm working on. I've come to realize that my eating disorder came out of me feeling like I wasn't in control, and food was just a very specific way I can control things.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like the root cause of my eating disorder. It kind of sprung out of like my anxiety because my anxiety made me feel out of control. And
Hmm.
so that was my eating disorder was the way for me to control something. And so,
Yeah.
I'm still working on like the body image and like feeling comfortable with myself, but I think that's just going to come with time.
Yeah, that will come and down. How, I mean, at this point, since you are like, seem like you're pretty self-aware, do you know where the anxiety stemmed from? Like, was it a situation or something, or was it more with the depression, like a chemical?
Well, I think it's more of a like a chemical imbalance. Because there was nothing in my childhood or anything that was specific that was like traumatic, and so there wasn't anything that would have caused any anxiety. I just remember as a kid just always being like this little anxious thing, and I would just be scared of breaking rules and just afraid of things happening. And as I got older, it kind of turned into more depression, which is actually common. I was talking to my doctor about this because she's really big on mental health. Um, Oftentimes, if a child has anxiety and it goes untreated or unnoticed, it'll manifest itself later as like clinical depression.
Yeah.
So I could say that it turned into depression more around when I was a sophomore in high school, right around when I was 15. And that's when I started like going to therapy and everything. And so yeah.
How, as with anxiety and depression, like, how did that affect you in high school? Like, did you feel uncomfortable around the kids or?
I had a couple friends. I never liked big groups, but I liked like the smaller, intimate connections, and I'm still friends with them now. Like we've been friends since middle school, basically. So I was really comfortable with them.
Yeah.
But usually, like I hated talking in front of people, like a group. But I would say that's more normal for a lot of people because it's public speaking. But even stuff like when I would walk up to turn in a test, like I would get it was almost like I was embarrassed, like that I was walking up to the front of the classroom to turn in a test because I was afraid that everyone was like looking at me. Yeah. So I hated drawing attention to myself.
Do you remember any time, because it was funny, I think it was kindergarten. I remember going, or maybe it was first grade, being called up to write something on the blackboard. And we wore dresses all the time back then too. And like a sock or underwear or something fell out of my dress that must have gotten stuck like in the dryer. And all the people were laughing. And I was like, for the longest time, I was like, nope, I'm not getting up. I'm not getting up there. No way.
Oh,
you know, so it's so funny how something so insignificant, you know, can just like create a little phobia thing, you know. Do you like public speaking?
Yeah.
Do you have an opportunity to speak now, or I guess on your academic classes? Are you cool like talking online? Like you're doing quite well here. It's not a big crowd. It's just a computer. So is it easier talking to a computer for you?
I mean, yeah, it's easier talking to a computer just because I found, especially like when I'm like coaching like clients, they're always more able to share if it's over the phone, just because it feels like they're not talking to an actual person. But I feel like okay with public speaking. It's not one of my favorite things, but if I feel prepared, I can do it. And especially if it's about a topic that I enjoy.
You know what? Since you are on the younger side, I want to get your opinion on something. Like the way everyone connects now through social media and posting and, you know, private messaging. Do you find that like fulfilling when that, like, because your generation kind of mostly grew up with that, correct?
Yeah, I'd say so. I was growing up right around the time when like smartphones took off.
Yeah. So do you feel like, for me, when I talk, there's like chatting with someone on Facebook is nothing like chatting with someone in person. Like there's a whole different fulfillment at your age, like with your generation. Is that true with your generation too? Or do you get like that internal like fulfillment? Like you'd have a great chat with a girlfriend. Do you get that by communicating via social media, like on a private message?
I'd say it depends.
Is it more superficial? Like for a real, like a deeper conversation, the private messaging stuff doesn't work so well, or texting. Is that an accurate statement?
I think at least for me it is. It's because it's hard to, especially with texting, it's hard to get the right meaning across.
Yeah.
Because you can put emphasis on different words and it changes the meaning of the sentence. And so it depends on how the other person receives it. So I feel that with, like, if I was having like an important talk with like a significant other, I would want to have that in person. Yeah. But I feel like if it's just, you know, making plans or like just having a lighter conversation, I feel like it's fine. Yeah. But I think for the more important conversations, it's better for me to have them in person.
Part of the reason,
or at least like over the phone, like if we're far away from each other. But
part of the reason I ask that too is I keep hearing now what do they call your generation? You're not a millennial, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not real clear on the jargon of Generation X, you know, but I just hear from people my age now. I'm baby boomer, right? And that who hire like millennials, but I think they're more like mid to late 20s. and into the early 30s. I think that's what the millennial category is. But, they just, from what they report, is they want to do good in the world, but like they want it now. And there's like, they don't have a whole lot of fulfillment. And that's why I was just wondering if that had to do with the way people communicate now. Like, even though we're more connected than ever, I was wondering if in some ways we're more disconnected. And that's where I was going with that.
Well, I mean, everything is more instantaneous. And so it's a little more like instant gratification. So I guess that could be linked to it maybe, because if they're not, because if it's more instant, it's almost like there's no work involved. Like you can reach out to someone within 2 seconds kind of thing. And so maybe there's some of that.
Yeah.
I don't know about the generations of millennials and Generation X. I don't know.
I know. I don't either. You had mentioned before with your clients, that's impressive. At 20, like, where do you find your clients, your nutrition clients?
That I'm still in the process of getting that started. So I've coached like old coworkers that I've had. I've given sessions to like my family members. I reached out to a friend of my sister's. But once I finish my program, that's kind of when I start to get things up and running. But right now I'm kind of working on like, how do I market myself? What kind of people do I want to work with? So I'm going to reach out to my doctor's office, actually, because she runs her own practice, and see if any of her patients want sessions. I live close to a couple colleges, so I was going to put up flyers there. Social media is also another good way to put yourself out there, just because it can reach so many people at once,
Yeah.
So I was going to start doing that soon.
Do you have problems at all, like charging?
Yeah, I kind of do. Only because I'm afraid, like, I'm going to be charging too much, but that's actually part of the course that I'm in. They're teaching you to like realize that what you're giving people is valuable, and you deserve to be recognized for that.
Yeah.
And it's not the people who want to be coached by you will have the means to do it. It's kind of they call it the synchronicity. That's the energy you put out is the energy that you're going to get back. You just kind of have like confidence in your prices and confidence in what you're offering. And then those clients that actually want to work with you will find you.
Yeah.
So it's still kind of something that I'm like going through in my head, kind of like being okay with charging, but I know that
you're not alone in that. I mean, a lot of women I've spoken to, unless they've been in business for years, but older women who are just starting business, and it's kind of like, ooh, no one would pay for that. I guess they would. You have to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, where would you like to see yourself in like 10 or 15 years? Do you look that far ahead? I didn't when I was your age, but you seem way more mature than I was at 20. So
10 or 15 years, I would definitely like have my own place, whether that be like living on my own, living with roommates, or like a significant other. I would have my coaching business up and running. I'd have multiple clients. I have the means to travel if I wanted to, because I've always loved traveling. Definitely have my pets, hopefully in a committed relationship.
Yeah. And you're really young, but a lot of the kids, like my kids are 22 and 26, and a lot of their friends, like, they don't really want kids. I know you're so young, but I mean, do you have like a strong feeling one way or the other as to, yes, I want kids, or no, I don't want kids?
I don't know. I've gone back and forth with it. Like I would be afraid of like messing up the kid.
Yeah.
Especially since I know like I've had issues with anxiety and depression. Like my dad's had issues with that. His mom has had issues with that. So I know it's something that kind of runs in the family.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, there's the risk that like they would have it, and then how I would be afraid of like
passing it on.
I don't know, just making it worse. And then And also just right now, the idea of having kids scares me.
Yeah, well,
but my mom was like, "Well, that's because you're young," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah,
I think it would just have to be with the right person. Like, I would just have to find someone that, you know, obviously that I love, and that there would be an understanding and stuff like that. So I think it would just depend. But as of right now, I'm not set on one way or the other.
Yeah. No, and that wasn't really kind of a fair question. I was just wondering if that age difference, like they're more millennials, they're friends, and but their thing is that, you know, it takes too much of your time. They don't want to have to put themselves out because of a kid. You know what I mean? They don't want to not do what they want to do because of a kid. So I don't know. It's just
and I agree that, like, once you have kids, like, that your priority should be raising your kids. It shouldn't be going off and doing whatever you want, kind of thing.
Right.
So I think that also, like, waiting until my partner and I are both financially stable and
do what you want to do.
You know, we've done everything that we like.
Yeah. If I asked you one word to describe your childhood, what would that one word be?
I mean, I have an answer, but it's not anything of like I would say I had a fair childhood. Like, I did, like, it was fair. Like, I had, like, loving parents, and I had, you know, a good family, and I had friends.
Yeah.
But it wasn't anything of like, those were the days kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, you know what amazed me and how many people I talked to over the years? There was like no sexual abuse, no alcoholism of anyone or drug abuse or I mean, like dysfunctional stuff. Because I think most of us are dysfunctional anyway, in some way. But
my therapist always says none of us leave our childhood unscathed, no matter how good it was. There's always something, but it just depends on how traumatic it's received.
Right. You know, I mean, it's really like what I realize now after, you know, it's not really about an experience unless the experience was really horrific, you know, but a lot of it is just what we take that experience to mean about who we are. That's what's important, you know. You know, when you take it personally. But did you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have one younger sister. She's 4 years younger than I am. So she's a junior in high school right now.
Yeah. So if I'm going to ask you a question that's probably not fair at your age because you probably may not have experienced it, but from the people around you, adults and whatever, how would you describe love?
I would say, from what I've experienced, I'd say love is having an understanding for that person. Not having to understand every situation that they're going through, but understanding that what they're feeling is real and it's important and it's worth listening to. It's caring for them, whether it's, you know, that they're sick or they just need someone to talk to, and not expecting anything out of them.
Oh, you are so smart. You did have good. You did. Whoever taught you that lesson taught you the greatest lesson in life is not to have any expectations about, I mean, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but like that's when, you know, when we expect somebody to make us feel a certain way, that's kind of where we get into trouble, you know?
Yeah.
So whoever taught you that, and if you taught it yourself, man, awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Along that line, since you're like, that was such a great answer. Do you know yet? Like, do you have a good sense of who you are as a person? You know, like what you value and what you believe in and what you like and you don't like. And I know you're young, so I'm not expecting you to know everything. I'm just wondering, is that something that you've taken a look at during your therapy?
Right.
Yeah.
I think I'm definitely on the way there. I don't want to say that, like, yes, I know exactly who I am. I've definitely, especially through therapy, have discovered a lot about what I value and what I want and need out of life.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't say that like I'm completely set on who I am, because I'm still like a work in progress. I'm still
Yeah.
kind of
Well, you know what?
smoothing the edges and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, your beliefs and stuff change anyhow through life. I mean, once they,
Yeah.
it's just a lot of women, but I think it's older women, you know, once you have kids, and this is probably why millennials don't want kids, is because like we threw ourselves into kids and we, kids are grown and you turn around and you're like, who am I? Like, what the heck do I want? What do I,
Yeah.
that type of thing, what's kind of cool about knowing what you value is that it makes decision making really easy, right? Because you figure
Yeah.
out like your top few values, and then if something comes along, if it doesn't fall in line in what you value, then it's easy decision. Don't do it. So
Yeah.
I was gonna say, how about any problem? You had mentioned knowing what you need. Have you learned yet how good are you at meeting your own needs? Like, do you put yourself first, which is good to put yourself first?
I would say lately I've gotten better at putting myself first. Before, I would kind of bend over backwards for people, especially if I was like dating them.
Okay.
I mean, I've really only like seriously been in a relationship with one person, but I remember, especially towards the end, I was like constantly putting my own needs down to kind of appease them so that they would want to be with me.
Yeah.
So that wasn't healthy. So I'd say I've gotten better at it. I'm not 100%, but I've gotten better at it. So that's something that I've always had a hard time with.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, you seem like way wise beyond your years. And to know that at 20, that, to get somebody like you put yourself second. Was that something you discovered on your own, or was that something through like your parents helped you out or therapy? Because that's what kids need to learn. Yeah, where did you uncover that piece of wisdom from?
It was a little from my therapist and a little from my school, because I talk a lot about, you can't give out to the world if you're feeling empty. And so, but therapy also taught me that too, because I've had the same therapist the entire time I've been in therapy, and I absolutely love her. She was with me when I was going through my relationship, and then when I was going through the breakup, and then like all the stuff that happened after that. And so like she's seen me when I was trying to work it out with my ex, and she saw that I was like doing all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And she put in her 2 cents, but she's always been big on letting the person figure it out.
Yeah.
Because that way it really sticks. And so she guided me in the right direction.
Yeah. That's very cool. So for now, do you know yourself within to notice if you do that again in a relationship, I imagine?
Right. I mean, I think I would be able to pick it out. I think I would be able to notice if I'm doing it. But it would be a whole other story to actually get myself to stop doing it. Because I'm just like, dating has always been like a weird thing for me. And then once I actually started dating, it got even weirder.
So what's weird about it?
Well, I mean, I didn't actually start dating until I was a junior in high school. So it was kind of late.
Okay.
And I dated this guy for a week or like 2 weeks, and then he ended it. And then that same guy and I got back together my senior year, and we were together all the way up until July of last year.
Okay.
So we were together for like 3 years. And that was like the first dating experience that I had. And so like, and I've always liked the idea of like being in like a committed relationship and having that connection with someone.
Yeah.
And then after that, I dated a couple other guys, but none of them really like stuck. I just have this like not this distrust in everyone, but just this kind of like apprehensive, like especially around men, where I'm just like, it makes dating weird.
Yeah. Are you able then to like able to express like whatever your thoughts and feelings were without like did you worry about him like do you worry about what other people think about you at this point? And you're young again, so like it could be most people do, but
I'd say, I mean, I probably do. I'd like to say that I don't, but to be honest, I probably do think about it. With him, I was able to express myself towards the end of our relationship, just because like when we were together, I was also like kind of in the middle of like a big depression episode, and so like I felt like a lot of things were muted.
Yeah.
But I mean, I give him props because he helped me get through a lot of it. He's actually the one who got me going to therapy.
Oh.
So I can never totally hate him,
no.
but because kind of saved my life. But
yeah, it's funny. Like if you can look at it, and it's really hard to do it, but I've kind of learned with myself, if you can look at relationships that end, is that they served a purpose, and that but we kind of get like comfortable with people, and I don't know. It's
yeah, that's what it was. I was really comfortable with him. I felt like I could tell him anything, and a lot of it, like going through the breakup, a lot of it was a habit. Like I had this habit of always texting him and then calling him and seeing him all the time because we live like 5 minutes away from each other.
Yeah.
So
that's
it was just this habit.
It was. And so like at times when, things would break up, I'd go, okay, do I miss the person or do I miss having a person?
Yeah.
And most of the time it was missing having a person. It wasn't necessarily the person I was missing,
Right.
I mean, on that, like, do you think, is there a difference in your mind between being alone and being lonely? Feeling, I should say.
I mean, being alone, I'm fine with being alone. Like I do stuff on my own all the time. And when I was 17, I was in the middle of doing like really intense dance stuff, and I flew to New York for 2 months to do a dance intensive with one of their companies out there.
Wow, that's great.
And so I lived on my own for 2 months in New York. So, and I did like everything by myself. Like I had roommates, but I went out and I was a tourist like by myself. I went to Central Park by myself. I went out to eat all the time by myself. And so being alone doesn't bother me, but I definitely, I mean, I could say this, probably everyone hates being lonely.
Yeah. Yeah, I do a lot of stuff by myself too. And after like, when I first got divorced, I was of that generation where like at the kids, everyone went, I went, uh-oh, who the hell am I? Like, so I spent a few years like self-reflection, learning what you already know now, which is amazing. But, and I spent a lot of time alone, but then there gets to a point where it's like, okay, I'm boring now. I need someone else to like hang around with,
Right. Yeah.
The school thing, like working online, do you think that breeds more like, I always like to term it social isolation. I mean,
it is kind of, I would say it can be kind of isolating because especially since, I'm not seeing people all the time. So like basically I'm at home and then I go to the gym and then I go back home and then I do schoolwork there. Yeah. And then I'll teach a class and come back home. So it's not like I'm out socializing, which is also another reason why dating is kind of hard. So I actually started using dating apps.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I went on them like for maybe 2 months and I went, you know what? Like if every guy liked to cuddle, walk on the beach and do all that, they wouldn't be divorced. It was just like the same kind of profile that everyone had. And I went, yeah, here's what I don't like about dating is a couple of the guys I've dated, particularly one recently, if I passed them on the street, paid attention, they wouldn't have caught my eye. But the personality is what what attracted me to them, not the looks. And online, you don't know how many people you might just like be Xing off just because what they look like, and
Right. Yeah.
yeah, that's the only thing I don't like about the dating thing online. So yeah, and with the social isolation, like when I do the same thing because I'm starting a business past year, I quit work, and you spend most of your time at home in the computer. And there are days I'm like, oh my god, I gotta get out in the world and around people and energy.
Yeah.
you know, um,
Yeah.
yeah, and we,
I mean, that's part of the reason why I do my workouts at the gym, because it's like I just got to get out of the house.
I know. There are days I go like, oh my god, the only time I left the house was to walk. That's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that problem might be getting kind of worse too. That's why I was wondering also with social media, does it fill you in that? Because it looks like a lot of kids are doing stuff online now, trying to like do the coaching businesses or like make businesses from online, which is awesome because it gives you mobility to go wherever you want. But the downside,
Right.
do you get that sense of fulfillment with human connection when you're connecting through a computer or a phone? I just wasn't sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
I don't think it's a sense of like real fulfillment, because there's nothing quite like human touch and human
yeah.
interaction. And I feel like it's not the same going through a computer.
Yeah.
Like if I can, I like meeting with my clients in person and sitting down and talking with them, unless they'd rather do a phone. If they're more comfortable talking over the phone, then I'll do it then. But
I went to a conference once and I don't know where this research came from. They quoted the research. I just don't remember, but it was talking about hugging. And it was a 5-day conference, and they started it with hugging every day. And it was funny, like I'm a huge hugger. So I'll hug everyone. But some people are really uncomfortable hugging. So you could tell at the beginning, the first day, people are like doing like, the bodies were apart and they do the little tap on the back, and by day 5, I mean, they had to break people up going, okay, stop hugging now. Stop hugging. Stop. But the research they quoted said that in order to, if you had less than 4 hugs a day, you were at risk for depression and stuff like that. 4 hugs was, that was 4 hugs or less, you're in trouble. 8 hugs a day to maintain your emotional health, 12 hugs to thrive.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's some startling research. Actually, after that conference, I would just like walk people on the street. I'm like, hey, do you mind? Could I get? They must thought I was nuts. I was like, could I give you a hug? And people would be like, yeah, okay. and but yeah, that human touch. I mean, our brains are wired for connection. So what's in your young years? What's been your greatest struggle so far?
I went through like my breakup with that guy. And that was rough, because I found out he was cheating on me for 2 months at the end of our relationship. And so that was like a huge, like I thought I could trust you, that kind of thing. And so and the guy I dated right after that, I only dated for like 2 months, but he actually date raped me. So so just dealing with those 2 things like at the same time really kind of took a lot out of me.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the date rape, what did you tell anyone about it? Like
I did.
You did. Good.
Yeah. I actually, when I first found out, because I actually didn't remember until after the second guy and I had broken up.
Yeah.
And so I realized it later, and like the day I found out, like this is like when my ex and I were still kind of talking and thinking that we might get back together. And so like I like called him in a panic, and I was crying, and he was like, oh my God, what's wrong? And so then like it all just kind of came out. And so he was the first person I told. After that, I talked to my therapist about it. And so she encouraged me to, if there was like a safe person, to tell them, so that, someone else was kind of aware of what was going on and they could help me get through it. And so I actually reached out to my friend Tara, who I knew went through a similar situation. And so she was able to kind of like calm me down, kind of balance me out a little bit and let me know like, hey, it wasn't your fault. Like this guy was an asshole and things like that. And so she helped me out quite a bit. Yeah. And since then, I've told my other best friend and my mom.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause that's, I'm not sure you'd have to share that, but I think that's like part of the healing, is like letting it out. Any, as far as, any of the control issues come back again after that? Because I imagine that makes you feel a little out of control. Not that you're out of control, but I mean, that's just.
Right, yeah. It did a little bit. I would say not so much like I hadn't like a relapse in my eating disorder, but I just went into almost like survival mode. Like I was sleeping a lot. It was basically another depression episode. Like I was sleeping a lot. I was eating, but I didn't really have an appetite. And so it was like kind of minimal.
Right. Just picky stuff and nothing healthy.
Yeah. Like I was only like hungry for like certain things. Or like I would snack, I wouldn't really eat. So it was things like that. But I didn't have like a relapse in like my full-blown eating disorder, which was good.
That's good. That's good. Now I'm just curious, how did the guy respond to it? To your telling him? Like I hear about women all the time who were raped, either date rape or in childhood. And I know how it makes a woman feel, but how did he react to it?
So when I told my ex, he was actually really supportive. Like he handled it better than my mom did, honestly. I was kind of shocked, but I felt bad because I almost felt bad telling him because he felt it was his fault that I had to go through it, because he's like, well, if I didn't break up with you, like, then you wouldn't have met that guy. And like, he was like, where does he live? Like, I'll go get 10 guys and like go over there. I'm like, no. That's not what I want. But he was like, I always wanted to protect you from this. And like, I hate how we did that to you. And so he was really supportive. And I think it was good that I told him first, because he wasn't all like, oh, well, you were asking for it kind of thing.
Right. That's what I was curious.
So I think
guys get pissed off at it and feel it's such a great injustice as it is. Or do guys go like, oh, it's guy thing? That's what I was trying to figure out. How,
yeah.
I imagine the next guy you date, how do you think you'll protect yourself without putting a wall up?
Yeah.
Have you gone on a date since then?
I have. Yeah, I've been using the dating app. Okay. And I told myself that I would let the guy know if I was going to be seeing him continuously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's still something that like affects me, and so I don't want him to like wonder why, if I start acting weird for some reason, like he's wondering why. So I actually had this one guy that I dated him for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And so I told him, I was like, hey, I want to let you know, because I have these 2 spots on my back from where the guy who date raped me, his name was George. But there are a couple like rug burn spots on my back from where George was being really rough.
Okay.
And they're still there. Like they're pretty dark, but the guy I was dating saw them and was like asking like, oh, did you have back surgery? I was like, no, like this happened. And I told him, and he wasn't the smartest guy. Like he's not the most tactful. Like he wasn't necessarily being mean about it. I don't think he knew how to respond right. He was like, oh, interesting.
That was his response. Interesting.
That was his first response. I was like, that's not how you respond to that, but all right. And so then he would say, And he actually asked me, like, is what, like, because it happened, like, in the middle of us having sex, like George and I, when he date raped me. And so, like, he was like, well, the guy I was dating, I said, well, isn't it kind of like your fault? And then I stopped talking with him.
Yeah. Yeah, don't even.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not going to waste my time on this. So, yeah.
Is there anything, talked about your struggle, is there what's your greatest fear?
I would say that, like, I'm afraid of, like, not finding someone, you know, to spend my life with. I'd say that's probably something. Yeah, other than that, nothing really comes to mind.
Okay, good. And you rock it for a 20-year-old, I'm telling you that.
Thank you.
Let me see. Who do you see when you look in the mirror? And again, you may have no clue at your age. But, like,
I think it depends on the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, some days I'm, like, feeling really good about myself. I'm like, you know, you're working out, you're doing your thing, you're looking good, like, good job. And then other days I'm kind of like, I'm not really feeling what's in the mirror right now. Yeah. Whether it be, like, physically or just kind of, like, my mental state, I'm kind of like,
Yeah. What's your inner critic? We all have, like, that inner critic, you know. What's your sense? Mm-hmm. What kind of things?
What kind of things does it say?
Yeah, like mine says, like, who do you think you are? You cannot do this. Are you crazy? You know, that voice in our head that tries to talk us out of doing stuff we want to do.
Right.
With our vibes. I mean, you know.
My inner critic is more, it'll say things like, you know, what you're doing isn't enough, or you're not doing what you should be doing. You're not doing enough.
Yeah. Yeah, same ones we all have. Our critics are nasty. So here's a really important question. Have you figured out a way, can you shut it down? The voice?
Not completely.
Yeah.
That's still something I'm working on with my therapist, is my therapist and my health coach, because I have my own health coach that she's helping me get through stuff. And so she's also helping me with that, like, kind of shutting down that voice.
Yeah, I know. I actually got to a point where I was just like, shut up, just shut up.
Yeah.
I think I started being kinder and kind of saying, really? Okay, give me evidence. What makes you say that? You know, and I would, like, kind of dispute it and challenge it. And then finally, some days I would just be like, just shut up. You're wrong. Shut up, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Do you, being that, like, you're kind of health conscious, I know you teach Pilates, do you do journaling, yoga, anything like that seems to bring you some quietness in your mind?
Yeah, actually, I do a lot of journaling. I'm getting back into the groove because there was a period of time where I didn't do it for a while. I was doing it, like, sporadically.
Yeah.
But I've gotten more into the groove of doing it. I do yoga. Not as disciplined as I would like to.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because, like, I just get antsy when I'm doing it. But I want to be doing it more. I would consider myself a pretty health conscious person.
Yeah.
I try to balance myself between, like, working out and eating well, and not being too restrictive like I was when I had, like, my eating disorder. But then also kind of being aware that, like, you know, what you put into your body is going to nourish you. So yeah, but I would consider myself pretty health conscious.
Yeah. Did your parents teach you, or did you teach yourself? Like, do you have a morning routine? Are you good with establishing routine?
I am when I'm not depressed.
Yeah.
So if I just recently got back into a morning routine because when I was in the middle of like my depression episode, I didn't have a routine going. I would just kind of get up at whatever time. I would eat breakfast, and then I would end up going to the gym at some point in the afternoon, and then come back and eat lunch. But then by that time, like my whole day is gone, so I wouldn't really get much done. But now I've gotten into the habit of like, I get up, I do my morning stuff, and I go straight to the gym, and then I come back and eat breakfast, and then I have the rest of the day to get my schoolwork done, brainstorm some coaching stuff, hang out with friends if that's what I'm doing that day.
Yeah.
So that I have more use of my time and I'm not, wasting stuff.
Are other 20-year-olds as smart as you?
I don't.
do you attribute that to like who you are, your parents, or do you think a lot of it is kind of like having therapy, which is possibly like a mentor?
I think my therapist is a huge influence. I think she allowed me a safe space to kind of get my stuff out there. And then once it was out there and I was talking through it, I was kind of able to kind of mentally organize why I was feeling that way and what I could do to make it better. And so I think everyone should go through therapy, at least for something, even if nothing as traumatic has happened in your life. It's just good to become self-aware because you're forced to look at yourself and realize what you're doing and the patterns of what you're doing and why you're doing it, and you kind of like reorient yourself. I feel like my therapist has been a huge help.
Yeah, I actually, because she's taught you a lot of like actually, or what you're doing are like their life skills, their success principles that, chances are if your parents taught you, you wouldn't listen, because we don't listen to our parents at that age. They don't know anything.
Yeah.
And you're not going to listen. You may actually do, like, if you're like me, whatever your parents told you, you did the exact opposite, even if you knew they were right.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, it's almost like having not only a therapist, but like a mentor, like someone to guide you through life skills that they probably didn't know at your age, but now that they're older, we should teach like stuff like that in school. Maybe I'll make that my eventually one day, because you are, I don't know if you realize it, but for 20, you're way put together.
Oh, thank you.
You are. And, I can just imagine, man, you're going to be on top of the world in like 20 years. Because you've got everything you need. You have all the wisdom now. I'm not all the wisdom, but as far as like, what to do to be the best you, right? Like, yeah, I'm very impressed.
Well, thank you. That's really good to hear. Thank you.
I mean, particularly doing, when we were talking about the date rape, have a lot of your friends experienced that, or kids your age? How common is, I know statistically what it says, but like in your circle, is it fairly common?
Well, my social circle is pretty small, but I mean, 2 out of the 3 of us have gotten date rape, so it's pretty prevalent. But I mean,
that's
I think it's more. A lot of people think that rape is some guy that's like hanging out in the bushes and like tackles you to the ground, but a lot of times it's not like that. It's someone that it's someone that you're close to, and there's this gray area around it because oftentimes you're not really sure what happened. And then there's like, well, do I press charges? Do I not? Is this person going to be around anymore? There's a lot of gray area around what date rape is in the real world. It's not like I said, some guy hanging out in the bushes waiting for you to walk by.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of women don't report it. I would even venture to say, like they don't report it, and some people may not even be aware that it's happened. They just feel weird around it. Yeah. They don't know why.
Yeah. I know I've talked to a couple women who have, rape I guess in its purest form rape is somebody forcing you to have sex when you don't want to. But I mean, in marriages, it's like, just because you're married doesn't give a husband the right to have sex with you whenever he wants. But that seems to be like a really gray area with the women I've talked to,
Yeah, like, oh, it's like he's like my husband.
Yeah.
Well, if you didn't want it and it was forced, if any sexual act was forced upon you, that's rape.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess things will be changing with the Me Too. I'm really glad. And I'm also like really impressed on kids your age, the way they speak up. That's, the parents of your generation did a good job. So is there anything you wanted to discuss or, any issues out there that you see with women or men your age that trouble you?
I mean, just with everything that's been going on with like the media and all the marches that have been going on, and like the gun reform and the Me Too movement and everything that's been going on, and the Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter and all that stuff. I just think that once people start to realize that it's better just to be kind to everyone,
mm-hmm.
and to kind of realize that everyone has a story and everyone has something that they're dealing with, and so it's just better just to be kind to everyone. I think once people realize that and start acting on it, then I think people will start to become at peace.
Yeah. Where do you think all the anger? Because a lot of it, I think, is like anger and fear. Where do you think that comes from?
I think a lot of it just comes from the anger is coming from people being mistreated. The fear is from people not knowing.
Yeah.
It's like when 9/11 happened and there was like everyone was afraid of Muslims. It was because they didn't know, they didn't understand Muslim culture, and so they just thought that everyone who was Muslim was a terrorist. But that's not how it is. And so I feel like the same thing is kind of happening now with different groups of people.
Yeah.
And it's just not knowing what, like with the transgender ban that's happening right now. It's still something that people are learning about, and so there's this fear of like not knowing what it is, and so I feel like that's why there's a lot of backlash towards it. So I think that's why there's so much fear.
Yeah. Here's something that, and you referred to your therapist said something about it once, but do you think a lot of people's fear at the end of the day goes down to like the baggage they've been carrying around for years?
I think for some people it does. Like if they've had a traumatic experience involving a certain person, like a certain type of person, maybe they're going to be more apprehensive to that type of person.
You don't think that like hurt or pain that's being carried around and never addressed? You know how they say when people carry hurt and pain, there ends up being shame and all that. Mm-hmm. Do you think any of that makes people react irrationally?
Yeah, I would say probably. If someone's carrying around pain, then they're going to lash out in certain ways, whether that be physically or, verbally, or just taking it out on a certain group of people.
Yeah, I think that although I think we're going to go through another year or so of maybe like really people falling apart, but then I think it's going to make everyone much stronger. And the irony, as much as our president likes to pull people apart, I think in the end, he's going to bring people together. You know what I mean? Because you have groups of people that normally would not come together, but they're coming together because the issues just involve everybody. In your next step of coaching, what is going to be your own internal greatest personal hurdle to get over? Can you see anything yet? Like something you go, oh my God, I don't want to do that. I know I have to do that, but it makes me really uncomfortable to do that.
I'm kind of nervous about putting myself out there as a coach and like getting like a website running, and like having a presence on social media, just because I feel like that's something I haven't done before. Like keep something.
Yeah.
Because I have like an Instagram and a Facebook, but that's like my personal stuff. Like I post whenever I want, and it's completely unrelated to each other. But if it's like for a business, it has to be like you want to post on a schedule and you want to have certain type of content put out there. So I feel like that's kind of something I'm uncomfortable with, only because I haven't done it.
Yeah, yeah. And just like all the things that you've learned though, that's what I'm saying. They're setting you up to develop like that consistency and the structure. I think you're going to do great. I think you're going to do amazing.
Well, thank you.
And listen, if there's anything I can ever do for you, please reach out. All right.
All right. Thank you so much. This has been a great talk.
Yeah, it has. I enjoyed it. And I can't wait to see your name, like, as one of the top like women entrepreneurs.
Oh,
10, 20 years.
thank you.
So, all right, sweetie. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you as well.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.